Boom, we are live. What's up, peeps? Joshua Smith here. And you guys, we wanted to try something a little different here. So I was talking with my good buddy, Rhyan Finch, who is the co-host here on this Facebook Live, if you will. And Rhyan is one of my best friends in the real estate industry, as well as has been a huge mentor to me and my success throughout my whole entire career. And just as a way to support you guys and give back to the group here, once a month going forward, we are going to be streaming a Facebook Live where we can just jump on and tackle any questions that you guys have. So real quick though, Rhyan, let me just lead with this though, dude. For those that maybe this is their first time having an experience with you, man, why don't you just give us, kind of a quick background story of what your career's like and what you're doing now today.
All right. So I started as Josh's pool boy. So, I went in and, I cleaned the pool better than anybody else he had. And I did it for less than anybody else he had. So then he needed somebody to go get his coffee. I said, that's me. I'm your man. I get the best coffee at Cream and Sugar. Okay. No, for real. So, started on a team in Remax. Stayed there my whole career until I opened up First Class Real Estate. Before I ended up moving out and doing my own, I had a big REO thing where, we ran nationally on the REO. I had the connection. I made them a lot of money. I saved that government agency a lot of money by getting homes repaired from across the country, finding values and doing that, hooking up agents. That kind of was a tee up to what we do now, which is really we're setting up nationally with the franchise model to do leads and appointments to the franchisees. Had a big problem with franchises. I hated franchises until finally it clicked and I said, oh, that's what they're supposed to do. When I looked at McDonald's, I said, oh, they provide the burger at a better price. They provide the cups at a better price, right? And I said, okay, that makes sense, because I was so used to our type franchises where I was seeing in our industry it was just a name. And then that Remax model essentially didn't do anything for me. So anyway, I felt like I was trying to win at the wrong things. I want to be number one here, number one here, number one here. And I was like, that was pointless. That was all. Somebody else was winning because I was trying to win. So anyway, that's where we're at is doing that, selling the model of really giving value back to the people. And ultimately, I felt like there were companies or I was on a team and I felt like they were trying to hold me back from going on my own. And then I was on my own and they're trying to hold me back from growing. They were trying to hold me back from leaving. And so, I wish I had done certain things sooner and, analyzing it, but lacked confidence, in certain things, didn't know my numbers, didn't really know what to do. And it basically took a disruption to get me out of that comfort zone to go, fine, we're going to do it. Let's go do it. And so that's kind of the layup of where we're at.
Yeah, love it, dude. And you guys are watching this here in the GSD Mode Facebook group. And if you're watching this after the fact, make sure to join the GSD Mode Podcast Facebook group, which we'll have a link below so where you can jump on these, interact with these Facebook Lives, and ask us any questions. So with that being said, dude, you're definitely a dude that has always kind of thought outside of the box when it comes to solving problems. Like an example, I know you talk about this in your real estate book, Explode, teaching real estate agents how to build a team selling 500 plus homes a year, but like going to, for example, hey man, we got these, we buy ugly house, and all these house investor companies that are trying to go out there and buy these houses, man. Let me approach them for their seller leads, right? And see if we can create a win-win there. Like dude, every time I talk to you, man, you're just always thinking outside of the box. For those, in order for us, I guess, that are watching, listening to this, to be able to kind of take that same out of the box thinking approach to our business, to think of creative ways to grow, what are some suggestions that you have or kind of your thought processes that I had to do that, dude?
Accounts. If you were a medical salesperson, your job would be to go to different doctors' offices to get them accounts where they would essentially buy CPAP machines or, whatever their prescriptions are, right? And there's always like a pill of the day kind of thing where they buy them at a certain price. And like, I never really looked at it like that. I went into the doctor, there was a long line waiting to see the guy. And, next thing you know, I'm in an office. It's an hour after the appointment time I made. And so I said, what are these guys doing? How does this, really work? And so looking at it that way, it kind of adjusted my thinking on it. I saw this girl walk in that I knew from school at one time when I was in there, and she was saying what she did, and she was just kind of, you know, talking about it. And I went, oh, I get it. She's bringing tropical smoothie and lunch to these people. I said, why are you doing that? She said, because they're accounts. I want them to do this, and I'll go through all of them. Her whole job was to go get these accounts to go back to be able to get them to buy, because I didn't realize there were so many medical suppliers in the industry at that point in time. Those people get paid a ton of money because, and a friend of mine was like 150 grand a year salary, and I'm not telling people to go into this industry. I'm just saying this as a general, but they get a car allowance, you know, there's food, there's bonus incentive based on sales. I said, dude, this is awesome. I mean, you're making $200,000 a year, you know, based on this stuff. And it clicked, and I went, oh my gosh, we could do the same thing in this industry. How do we go get accounts? How do we go get our dentist office to be sending referrals to us? How do we go get an REO account, a hedge fund, builders, investors? All of those were accounts, you know? And so, you know, we kind of did them, but I never called them accounts because we don't really do that in this industry. It's just not our wording. But, you know, that is a huge play in generating businesses, going those relationships. But most people are too busy in the day-to-day doing one transaction after the next to go build an account. And once they build an account, it would keep feeding in, and they would get out of this hamster wheel of these other things. So that'd be one of the big things I would look at.
So what advice would you have, you know, because by the time this clicked, I don't know if you had your team in place yet by the time you started going after these accounts, but for somebody that's like an individual agent that is busy in the day-to-day, because it's kind of hard to get out of that, but that wants to get out of that, what advice would you have, you know, to going after these accounts?
Yeah. So I don't remember when that was either. This series of events happened at all different times. And then there was a point in time when it clicked, and they were all different. It wasn't like one event happened and it clicked, but here's the answer, man. And this is the easiest part of it. Our industry tells you, you got to drive the nicest car. You got to wear the nicest clothes, right? You got to push the envelope on all these other pieces of things. And what happens is they're wanting you to get in debt. So you're stuck in that merry-go-round thing. So the answer to it is not what you would think, like, oh, okay, work on this 1 hour a day and work on this 5 hours a day. That's what we think because we want to compartmentalize the time. But it really comes down to money allocation. And so what happens is if we do it and we're partying every night, traveling across the world because you're in the day-to-day making and doing a bunch of deals, then what happens is you can't get outside of doing it because you need that money today. Every month you need a new check, so you got to have a new deal. You got to have a new deal. Now the government gets their piece, the company gets their piece, and then you're getting yours at the end. And now you don't have anything, and then you're spending it all. So it's getting 10, 20%, 30%, 50% into savings, right? So the millionaire next door really goes through all that. What does he call it? He says, big hat, no cattle, you know, kind of thing. And so it's all about doing this where you can work your butt off and get a bunch of money saved, and it runs through a business. So, you know, and for anybody that doesn't realize this, is the reason we run real estate business is because you make money, you spend it, you pay tax on what's left over. An employee out there makes money, pays taxes, and spends what's left over, right? So then that's also a driver because it messes with your brain. Oh, I'm going to spend all my money so that I don't have to pay taxes. And I'm like, yeah, now you're stuck in the cycle again. So you've got to save, knowing you're going to pay taxes on it, to be able to afford to go after bigger fish one at a time. And not that you can't spend an hour on one thing and 5 on the other and manage your time wisely. But what will happen is you'll run into a bind, because if you get the account, now all of a sudden you've got to do all of it. So now you're stuck. So you got to be able to have the ability to leverage, whether it's an assistant or other agents or something like that. So hopefully that was a good answer to your question.
Yep. Love it, dude. So Rebecca is asking, what accounts did you go to that had the best return?
Well, for me, obviously, it was a Fannie Mae account. I mean, I think I did 1,000 units from that Fannie Mae account. But what happens is, like anything else, the industry kind of changes. So it's like REO is not as big as it was. But there was a point in time when, who was that, Blackstone or something like that? Aren't they in your area too? So yep. Blackstone was the account at the point in time. And then they went and bought all that stuff in Florida when it was down. You wanted to be the agent that they bought and sold everything to, right? So they bought them, rented them out. So then you needed a management company. So really it's sitting back looking at the industry. So the answer to that today, as we look at it, it's not REO. That's slow and slim pickings, right? It's not really hedge funds because prices are ticking up. So unless you're a hedge fund, maybe in Detroit or something like that, maybe you could do something. But the answer to it today, Zillow. Nobody wants to hear it, but unfortunately, they're going to keep feeding deals in and they're leveraging out the other brokers. And I know everybody's ready to just hang up and they're going to hang, I hate Zillow. They're in our market, blah, blah. And I go, okay, then realtor.com, you know, or which would be OpCity. because they're feeding those over. The challenge with it is you don't get to keep all the money. When I got a Fannie Mae deal, I got a percentage, I got a commission. They didn't take anything back. The big play was the new asset management companies came in and they would be like, oh yeah, you get this, but you got to pay us 25% back. Do you remember those? Do you remember when they did that stuff? So we'd go after all these accounts. I think that's where you met Chantel too, was in one of those REO things where people would trade off accounts, and then we called them accounts at that point in time. So anyway, the answer to it is probably a Zillow, maybe a builder. I mean, if I'm going after something now, so what I did, sometimes I just got lucky. I hate to even admit that. But I went and made a resume. It's funny, the harder I worked, the luckier I ended up getting. But I made a resume and I made it for REO accounts so I could send it to asset manager. I said, these are the zip codes, everything they would always ask back on the applications. I made that. Here's my bio. Here's what I sold. Here's my GRI and, you know, whatever credentials I had. And I would give that to the REO accounts. And then I decided with the builders, I said, okay, do I know all the builders, right? So it goes back kind of that thing where the investors would have signs out. I go, they're asking me to call them, you know? So, all right, fine, I'm going to call them. I have investors buy houses and sell them. Well, in this case, I said, well, there's tons of builders. They're always asking us to come to their site and stuff like that. I said, fine. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go drop off my resume, and I drop off a personalized bottle of wine. And I would just drop them off at a bunch. And then one of them calls me back. They fired an agent one time, and they said, hey, we really liked the presentation you had that you dropped off. You weren't pushy about it. You just dropped it off. We've had it on our desk for a little while because it stood out. And we wanted to give you a time to interview. And so I came in, I interviewed, and I got 80 units from that one thing. I only spent 2 or 3 days just making sure every builder knew who I was, you know? And so we did that, and that's kind of how it worked. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you know, thinking of the accounts, you know, I recently had Jason Mitchell. I interviewed him on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Summit that we just got done doing, where we had you as one of our guest speakers as well. And, you know, his whole entire business is built through these, he calls them channel accounts. Mm-hmm. You know, last year he had 1,400 home sales through channel accounts, right? And this year his goal is 2,500, and they're on at a run rate to achieve that. And, you know, a lot of his accounts, he mentioned, you know, Zillow and Realtor.com is that you mentioned.
I didn't watch that, by the way, so I didn't steal that.
Yeah. Well, no, for him, he's just like beginning the talks in those relationships. You know, his main account's Quicken. I think 900 of his homes last year was with Quicken.
Yeah, I heard that.
You know, right, which is huge. But then, you know, he laid it out pretty well in that. He's like, look, dude, it's just anybody that's feeding you consistent business. So this could be probate attorneys, divorce attorneys. This could be HR departments. This could be, as you mentioned, builders, right? One that's, if they're in your market, one that's been really good for us, a great partnership has been with Open Door, right? Because we're able to feed them our listings. So, right, when we go to on a listing appointment, we have an immediate cash offer to offer them, plus, you know, the option to go on the open market. But where that's evolved in now is they're buying so many properties that they don't have enough in-house agents. So like one of my agents, I mean, he's doing 5 deals a month that they're just feeding him. He only gets 35%, right? But it's like, here's the pre-qualified buyer. They have already seen our home. They want to buy it. Like, just write the deal, you know? So it's the easiest, like $1,500 he's ever made, you know? So a lot of different opportunities and options out there for that could be huge. Okay. So Sherman says implementing Ryan's tools and have skyrocketed my business. First class real estate premier group. Boom.
What's up, Sherman?
Yeah.
I flew down there and I met with them the other day, man. They're a good group of people, and they're hard charging after it, man.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah, they went from like 7 agents to 30 agents in like 3 months, and their sales are through the roof. So it's exciting to watch what they're doing.
And, you know, one thing that because I remember having this conversation with you when we first met, which was probably 8-9 years ago. And I was like stuck in that 40 million range, like 42 million one year, 45 the next year, you know, right. And well, dude, it's, you know, for drivers that are driven, dude, it's, you know, it's not about the money, it's about the growth. Like, it just fucking kills us to be stagnant. And, you know, and this is what you're referring to with these accounts, but you're like 50. Your solution's 50. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about, dude? And you're like, you can't involve your time in anything that doesn't result in the 50 transactions. Mm-hmm. And for me, you know, and this could have been maybe a limiting belief in my mind, but in my market, dude, like all the builders are huge tract developments that have in-house agents that are full-time employees that can't then do resell. So you're not going to get builder accounts here, you know, right? REO, which, you know, I'm a big fan of REO when it exists. But the one thing that you said that was a game changer for me was just agents. like, dude, recruiting agents, man. I had that philosophy that so many team leaders have of, man, I just want a small, high producing team.
Oh my God, I hear it every day.
Right? Which now I'm just like,
good.
man, it's the dumbest statement that exists. But I lived by it for like 5 years, right? And it was a massive game changer because it's something that all of us can do in any market, regardless if you have some of these channel accounts availability or not in your marketplace. We can all go out there and create a great team and offer great support and services that support agents and just keep growing and adding agents, man. And I don't know of a better, more effective, quicker way than that.
You said something when you teed up that other piece to what you actually said was your response. So you said, I don't know if it was my limiting thought pattern, right? That's what you said in the response to it. And then you said, all the builders have in-house agents, right? So that was your belief system, was all of them have in-house builders or in-house agents. And I highly doubt all of them really do. Maybe they all do. I mean, maybe they do, but it's just not normal. All of the REO accounts already have agents, right? And as long as that is our thinking, it's already an infinite and a shutdown. We close the door on that. All the Zillow agents already have it. It would go on all the time, and we do that in our brains, and it kind of shuts us down on how we're operating. The limiting factor. Here's what happens. All the team leaders I know that have big teams don't make any money, because they can't support their team. They don't have enough leads. They don't have this, that, and the other. That's what they think when they do it, right? Because, I've seen it. I've read the books behind it. They say build these big old teams, but all the ones I know don't make any money. They say I'd have been better off staying in production and doing X, Y, and Z, right? So that is the combating part to doing it. So, and the answer to that part is a model. You've got to make a model that makes a value for the agent, and you got to make a model that makes a profitable, sustainable growth for the office, right? Most of us don't have that scalability in our business. And the answer to it is the same as what we talked about before. You're going to work on your deals, and then you're going to work on your accounts. Well, then you're going to work on your accounts, and then you're going to work on your model. And so you keep doing each of these things. Like, there were so many things, if I did it over again, I'd have done differently. We set up things that didn't make sense. We're paying $1,000 for something to provide to the agents, but we had 10 agents. Well, now my scalability and cost, economies of scale, you're paying $100 an agent, for that one thing that wasn't even generating a business. That was just to keep everything going. You got a rent space that you're paying $5,000 a month for, and you have, 50 agents, then it makes sense. You have $5,000 and you have 5 agents, you're paying $1,000 an agent. So now you can't pay them a split, you can't make any money. And so that's a losing model. So just paying attention to those things.
What are some, I guess, I get asked this question all the time, of like, Josh, if you were to start over today, what would you do? Like, as an individual agent, there's this mindset and this belief that it's so much different from an individual agent to a team leader to a brokerage owner. And yeah, there are some things inside the business that might be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, right, it's like, I'm not doing anything different than I would do as an individual agent. We're just able to do a hell of a lot more of it because I have 74 agents doing that work, right? So for those that have that kind of limiting belief, I guess, of that their situation is different, like, what do you say to that?
So what would I do differently if I started again?
No, I guess it's just going against the limiting belief of with the, somebody that's an individual agent thinking that, or even, I get the reverse of this a lot of times with team leaders that are thinking that their role is so much different than now, and things like they're having to reinvent themselves in a way that their situation is just different now. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I'm trying to figure out what the question is. I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand how I'm answering the question. I thought I had it, and then I think I missed it, so I don't want to answer it wrong.
Yeah, dude. So again, just a limiting belief, right? Because again, all right, so people will reach out to me, whether it's in my master boot camp or on the podcast, and be like, all right, Josh, if because now I have a large team, right? But they're like, hey man, if you were starting all over as a new agent, let's just say with like on a daily like lead generation and the methods that we're utilizing, right? What would you do starting off as an individual agent, thinking that what I do now today is so different? And I'm not talking about the hat that I wear. I'm just saying, like, okay, hey, like our focus for our team, our 2 main new lead generation sources are open houses and Facebook ads, right? And then, working our sphere of influence and the hell out of our sphere of influence of past clients. right? So when I answer that question, I'm like, dude, they're doing the exact same things, right? But I think that so often, dude, we get this limiting belief of, or just a mind block of, let's just say a team leader, then to reverse this, right? Where they're like, man, I'm no longer an individual agent, right? Well, to grow your team to that capacity that you're at, like it's the same process, right? Where now instead of recruiting buyers or sellers, now you're just recruiting agents. Like get a
Right.
CRM, track your numbers, right? Like the basics and the fundamentals still apply. So I guess I'm answering the question in my own thought processes of how it would be, but just because you've been through all the hats, I guess, throughout your career, when people again have that and you talked about this before with the all builders in my area, right? Do this, right? That limiting belief that I guess the kind of tunnel vision of my situation is different, or it's different in my market, or it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. Okay. So I get a similar question in that frequently, and the answer to that question is similarly what you said, which is the difference between my 9-year-old my son playing baseball, and a professional baseball player, right? Because that's what you're referring to. At a different level, it changes, right? And I go, no, it doesn't change. You just learn to do the basics better, and so they still got to throw the ball. They still got to hit the ball. They still got to catch the ball, right? All of that is the same. Now, does it get to where it drills down and now they're recruiting top talent versus my pool of people I get to pick from is from a bunch of 9-year-olds, and now they've got everybody that graduated college, and they could go into the pros, right? So they've got farm teams. They've got different ways in which they pick people, and they pick people that'll perform those basics better. And so, it won't matter if your goal is to do deals, you need to have the most appointments. If you have the most appointments with buyers, you're going to do the most buyers. If you move to sellers, have the most seller appointments. Then have a rate of how many you list, get to closing, right? So all of those are just basics in selling. If it's recruiting, it's recruiting appointments. But what happens is they change back and forth. They go from the E-Myth calls it a entrepreneurial seizure. So they get to where they're trying to add on agents, but they go back to wanting to deal with buyers. And so then what happens, there's inconsistencies in their day, so they don't do the basics. It's like me saying, hey, I want to be the pitcher. No, wait, no, I want to be the catcher. No, I'm going to be the pitcher. No, I'm going to be the catcher. Wait, it's time to hit. And so they keep changing and moving around, but the role is different in doing their job. And so in all of it is everybody's got a position and everybody's got to do that job well. You need to do the basics of your position better. And it's not better in a sense of like you're not doing it well, but it's a better in competition wise to doing it better than you did it before, but doing it better than your competitor. If you start doing it better than your competitor, you will outpace them. What happens is we don't see immediate results, so we just stop doing it. Go to the gym for a day and you don't see the results. Oh, forget it. This doesn't work. And I'm like, well, it's the basics. You got to show up and work on this, that, and the other. Everything gets simplified. If you oversimplify it, that's a good thing. Make it so simple. Don't make it complicated, because then you let your brain go crazy.
Yep. Love it, dude. So, make sure there's no other questions in here. If you guys have any questions that are watching this, man, type those questions in and we'll crank on them, dude. So then, you said something earlier, dude, of that you were trying to win, right? Be number one at this, be number one at this, but you realized you couldn't win because by you trying to win was just making other people win, right? Like it was just going to be a lose-lose model for you no matter what. What kind of advice would you give if somebody's feeling maybe they're in that position or situation with what the stage they're at in their career, or maybe the location they're with, the brokerage they're with, or whatever that may be? What advice would you give to reflect and make the right decision where it's just not emotional, wrong decision? Like at some point, and you talked about the disruption that had happened before you cut the cord, right? But can you kind of walk us through like what you would recommend to assess that and before we go out there and just jump into making a decision?
Sure. So there's two facets that I look at with this. The first one is your pride wants to cost you money. Are you making a decision based on pride? Meaning I want to be number one. Now all of a sudden I'm in the wrong arena because I'm trying to be number one based on my pride. The second thing is choosing the right target. I mean, so, failure is succeeding at the wrong thing. So if you end up making a target of being number one, well, is that why you got into this? Is that why you're doing it? So somebody can pat you on the back? That's a pride thing that gives you the wrong target. So if it goes to be profit, I want to make a certain amount of profit so I can help the homeless, whatever that is. Now, all of a sudden your target changes, your inspiration and your why changes. And then what happens is you don't care if you're number one. You may end up being number one because you were trying to do something that was outside of yourself or something that was a bigger target. And so that's really what it is finding the people around you that are successful, that what's their target. And a lot of times people don't have their own target, right? That's where we end up having a bunch of people that are following somebody else. One guy comes up with an idea and says, hey, I'm going to do this. Well, I don't really have a plan or what I want to do, so I'm going to come on and follow you. So that part goes into the equation. But if you come up with your own target, it doesn't mean that you can't join forces or work with somebody, but it just means it's got to help you get to your target. So now every decision is based on that target. And your pride is a limiting factor. It will stop you from thinking of what's the next level, how do I get to the next level of what I'm trying to do, again, based on that target. And so, I normally tell everybody, most of the people that I coach with are franchisees, and I tell them, you got one goal, one main focus, profit. Now today, you mentioned earlier, you said 40 million, at 40 million, there's probably 100 people watching this going, I wish I could do 40 million in a year, right? Like, what could I do to get to 40 million? But so it's not about 40 million. That's the wrong target. The target was profit. So you can do 5 million and make more money than you did doing 40 million if you pick the right target. You can also make it where you're going, today, the target is I want to make $10,000. And there will come a point in time when that's not enough, right? You've reached that. So then you got to set a new target and you keep building it out. But if you make the wrong target of something like volume or units or whatever, that's where we get to go around and brag. So now we're trying to impress somebody that doesn't really care about what we're doing. And if you're trying to do that with somebody you're trying to impress that has a target, I mean, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, yeah, we're going to do 40 million this year. I'm like, okay. I mean, so what does that mean? I mean, you're going to do 40 million. Great. You did 40 million. You charged 0 commission. Good job. Right. I mean, they hit their target. So, but they still missed. So that's kind of the mindset that I look at when I look at is I picked the wrong target too many times. And it was based on my ego. My ego cost me money. I've never forgotten somebody telling me that. And I've tried to not bring ego into it. And I've tried to pick the right targets as best I can. And you keep getting a little bit better on how you charge that target.
Yep. Love it, dude. All right. A couple more questions that have popped in. So first one from Rick here. What was the largest obstacle that turned out to be the biggest blessing?
You go first.
That's a tough one, right? Because there's been so damn many.
You ain't kidding.
For me, I will say that, and I hope it to be a blessing. I guess it's still in motion right now. But the biggest obstacle I had was just far exceeding a capacity. In 2017, I started 7 additional companies just that year. It got to the point where now I had 10 companies getting ready to launching the 11th. And every day it was just that conversation of who do I break a commitment to today, my wife and kids or a business partner. And for the first time in my life, man, I couldn't carry my own weight, but then everything started to do this, every business, right? Because I was giving a half-ass focus and a half-ass effort to everything. And, and I think prior to that, one of the biggest issues that I had, right? Like we all want to win, but I won for so long, so consecutively that I just felt like I could pull off something that wasn't, something that I was able to pull off at that time, man. I got too cocky, if you will. Mm-hmm. It was a huge eye opener, dude. Like it fucking when I say almost killed me, like it was just, for that year, 50% of it was all-nighters, dude, right? Tons of all-nighters, not seeing my family, ended up having to exit from 6 of those companies, but the good that came from it though was, number one, I learned a ton of skill sets, right? From, because now I'm in healthcare and all these different ventures, that I never partaked in before, which each one, I learned a valuable skill set that I could add to my arsenal. But the most important thing that I learned was just focus, right? And through that, I always, and it's something I continue asking myself even now today. I'm like, what could I do if all my energy and focus was just given to one thing? Right? That's what I kind of always go now, but it's taught me the power of focus, man. Focus is in our ability to say no. There's a cool story, dude, of this dude that was at this cafe and saw Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and then Gates Sr. all sitting at a table together. So that's like the three people have the GDP of a lot of countries, right? With their wealth. So he walked up to them and he asked them, he's like, what's the number one characteristic or number one thing that it takes to create success? And they all three had the same answer, which is focus, right? And focus is in your ability to say no.
I'm taking notes.
I mean, to the point where, I mean, each and every day with my daily planning, it's here's the three things I can be involved in, right. And just being so laser focused on what to say yes to, what to say no to, and charging forward. So, I'm still rebuilding a lot of, the companies that I kept, right. The ones that I decided to keep, but they were the one thing that did teach me though, too, in addition to that though, is it's like, okay, yeah, now I still have multiple companies, but it's what's the reason I kept the certain companies that I have and the decisions I make going forward with strategic companies that I'm bringing on is it allows me to focus on one thing. This one domino has a positive impact on all the others, right?
That's good stuff. I'm gonna answer the question a little more for the process. So I went through a divorce. I mean, you asked, it's like a failure. I'm like, you can feel like a failure after a divorce. I mean, that's like you have all these plans, all these dreams, and boom, it crashes down. I mean, you're done. I mean, picking yourself back up and going forward in that is really hard, and a lot of people don't get back on track after that. But so if it's any advantage to answering this question is to go, that was probably one of the biggest blessings to ever happen. I'm with my wife and partner now, and I've got my son. I've got a son that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and so I have what I wouldn't have had. And so you don't see that in the middle of that storm of that thing going wrong. But once you have that other thing, you're going, I had to go through that. You also get to help other people that you kind of get to set that example for. And so, that's the base of the question. One of the things, I don't remember exactly how the wording of the question was, but it triggered one of these was, I was on somebody's team and they wouldn't let me do property management on my own stuff. And that was a disruptor of a thing going wrong. And so it triggered me to go, open up my own thing. I said, fine, I'm going to go start my own team now. Over that, it was the minusculest thing that there was, but it was like that was the one thing that led it. Fannie Mae, we had a big Fannie Mae account, and they came in and says, hey, you can't be an outsource company. I'm like, you guys asked me to do this. I didn't ask, you asked. So I'm doing it. You lose it. You go, everything you built and set up is kind of taken out from under you, and you've got to go build that thing back. But that led to opening up first class real estate. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been comfortable moving out because I was so comfortable in what was working, what was going on. And I just think of all the ripple effect of people's lives that I don't think I could have impacted or would have been involved with if that hadn't happened. In 2007, I mean, I maxed out every credit card. I had $50 in my bank account. I had a credit card maxed out. I had a Lexus payment. I had a $400,000 house, because everything was going okay. I did 1 year at that point of good real estate business, right? So I went and maxed. I made more money. So then I went and did, bought as much as I could borrow against how much money I was making, right? And that's what most people did. And I go, that taught me so much because by doing that, I had to go in, tighten my belt, make a budget. If I had never lost, I would just be spinning and spinning and spinning and spilling out, and it could have been way worse of what I had to go through. I've had processes and systems that were broken, and those processes and systems cost me an agent, or it cost me a business, it cost me some of the thing. And once it did, the pain of that loss had me go back and restructure, going, one mistake is okay, but if I have this mistake again, that's on me because I didn't go in and fix it. And that's just part of my my DNA now, is when there's a problem, I don't like it. There's a story some guy told, I don't remember where I even heard it, but they have a torture thing where they will tie you to the ground and they'll take like a bottle of water with a pinhole in it and duct tape it to a table over top of your head and let the drop just keep hitting you in the head over and over and over and over. And you're thinking, well, a drop doesn't hurt. 2 drops, that's not going to hurt. Maybe annoying. But after a while, it'll start to wear a hole in your head by hitting the same spot over and over again. And so that's always stood out to me because I call the things that are a pain that I never deal with, things that are broken or whatever, I call them drops. And I go, one drop doesn't kill me. One thing going wrong, it's all these continual drops over and over and over again. All of these continual things messing up or failures or dings. So I got to go in and fix them. And it's like stopping that water for a certain period of time so I can go on and do more. I don't know if that answered the question well, but that was my thought about it.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Yeah. It's, growth comes from suffering, man. And but you got to approach it with that right perspective, dude. All right. So we got some more questions that have come in. How many transactions a month is average for a good transaction coordinator? I don't know if you want to stab at that first or me.
How many can they handle?
Is that
the thing? All right, go ahead. What you got?
All right. So, and when I first say this though, it does depend on what your model is, right? So when I'm going to give you my answer, I just want to put some context to it because I have my transaction coordinators focus solely on contract to close. I have a separate listing coordinator that her full entire job is listing input, right? So if all they're actually doing is transaction coordination, right? That's their contract to close is all their focus. It's for me and my team, it's 25 per month is the capacity we like to keep them at. Right now, we'll have times where they can, get up to 30, 35. Cause you got to think if they're working 25 closings a month, closing 25 deals per in 1 month, right? That means they're probably working 40 files or so because they're opening new, they got pendings, for the following month and whatever. But that's where we find they can we can get them to where they can handle more than that, but that starts to overextend them. And that's where mistakes happen. So that's also where I judge it based on when I need to hire somebody new. Like what is our growth rate? Let's just say each month on average, we're growing an average of 2 deals a month, right? On a run rate, right? Well, then I can kind of predict, okay, at what point then do I need to hire a new transaction coordinator? Okay, it's going to take 90 days to onboard and get them rocking and rolling already. So then, but that's the capacity we try to keep ours at.
That's a good answer. I'm gonna touch on a little different thought pattern in this. So based on this question, it's like how many can they take? Like you said, you can have 25 in a month and 25. So really they're working 50 files. I would look at a couple different metrics. The first one is the fall through rate. So which means somebody's capacity to fall through could be at 10. And so if they're losing 10 and if they're at 10 and you give them 25, you're losing 10 more deals or 15 more deals potentially that are falling through because their capacity was only able to be 10. So it's going to be based on that person. That person's value is going to increase based on that in twofold. One is they don't have fall through. And the second thing is, like you said, you don't have to hire somebody else. So if I can get more without having to hire somebody else, that's where a system and a process comes in. So being able to see the fall through, know the reporting. Most people don't even know what falls through. We only count what made it through the cracks instead of what fell through the cracks, right? So knowing how many make through. So our answer really is about 30. We like to see them at 30 per month going up, but we also know revenue-wise what that's worth closings, and we know in value add to their salary based on the amount of closings, what it costs us per closing to have a closing. And then this is going to be the last part of that challenge is, so let's just say you had two and they're averaging 60 a month, right? And that's your number based on the question we just asked, right? We're hitting 30 a month, and that's the right metric based on the flow of the system, the checklist, and what they can handle without fall through. Well, now you hired Sue. Well, Sue's now your third one. Well, you now just added, let's call it 30 grand a year to Sue to go from 60 up, but you just took where it was costing you whatever 30 divided by 30,000, $100 a closing. You just now took that same salary and added it across your same 60 closings. You follow that? Meaning you added 3 salaries to have the same amount of closings in a goal of trying to get them to 25 or 30. So every month they're doing 2, it's costing you. Every month they're doing 3, it's costing you. So that rollout is the add-on, and that's the pain point. It's not how many can they handle. It's them handling it in a metric of a model to go, at what point do I add the third one, knowing that it's going to cost me? And the answer to it is, if your target is profit, then you want to push that to the limit, watch as much follow through, and get as many closed without having that fall through to not have to add the next person. So you want to get them as efficient as possible is the long and short of it before you're worried about adding another.
Yeah. And it's so important. This was Andy Willoughby that asked the question. And it's so important though to make sure that, and as Ryan hit on, dude, your systems and processes have to be dialed in for this, right? The most common thing I hear from team leaders or brokerage owners is I can't find great people, right? And that's just an instantaneous red flag to me that they have shitty processes and systems in place.
That's right.
The system and a process is also your hiring process to find that talent, right? It becomes so critical. So then from there, right, like we spend so much time onboarding a TC. Like I hired a TC last Thanksgiving, right? It was like the day out or the week of Thanksgiving. Well, it was almost 4 solid months before she was released to go start working her own files, like fully on her own, right? Without having everything to be, without a head overlooking her shoulder all day long, right? I mean, we just make sure that they're massively overtrained, but then everything's inspected, and then, making sure that the systems and processes are in place where it eliminates any and all guesswork, right? Because I don't care how great a person is, they can never show you the greatness if they don't have great systems to follow. So that can be huge. Next question from Rebecca. What's the best way to go after probate attorneys? I don't know if you have any advice there. You
first.
All right. So, it's just like anything, right? So, and let me start with this. This has not been a niche that I've went after. However, any niche that I have went after, I've never had an issue having success in that niche, right? And it's because I understand marketing strategy. Right. And what I mean by that is everybody has a pain and everybody has a pleasure. Right. So a pain that they're experiencing, a pleasure that they want to get to. And it's our job to articulate to them through our marketing, through our efforts, and through our actions that we are the best guide to get them from that pain to pleasure. So as an example, with getting into REO, I mean, it took me 6 months to get my first REO account. Right. And how I landed in this was my first account was actually Fannie Mae. And how I got in with Fannie Direct was worked hard to get contacts, right? Buying lists, whatever, to get the right contacts. But I would hit them every single Friday and then every single day before the holiday, right? Hey, happy Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. Just so you know, I'm around. I'm available if you need anything. If you can't get a hold of one of your agents, if they're busy and you need a notice posted, you need a BPO, you need something done, I'm your guy. You can rely on me. Right? Christmas Eve, right? Hey, just want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas. Okay. Just so you know, something comes up. I don't care if it's Christmas morning, you call me, I'm your guy, right? Just that reliability, consistency, and then bam, right? Because I knew that a big pain that they had was they couldn't get agents to get tasks done in time. And that would negatively affect, their KPIs and their scorecards and their pay, right? So I wanted to be that free resource, at least initially, to develop that relationship, show them and prove to them that I'm an asset first. And one day it came, hey, man, we can't get a hold of an agent. Like, we really need, this BPO done, right? Didn't ask for anything, just went and did a great job at it, knocked it out. Bam. What do you need next? Right. And then over time, the law of reciprocity kicks in. So, whatever it is though, with this, you got to become an expert, if you will, in that niche. So the first thing that I would do is like get to know the probate process and, what it's like going through it for the families that are going through this. So what it's like to go out there and support them. Right. Then from there, right, it's going back to what Ryan was talking about with the channel accounts, is find out and identify what the pain is for these attorneys. So there's a gentleman named Dan, I think Dan Cohen. I can send it to you later, Rebecca. I put it in the group post, but I had him on the podcast, and this is his niche, probate attorneys, right? Or just probate in general. And he's really infused, even though he's a young dude, he's really infused in the elderly communities. Right. But he also helps solve problems. Like, he's got estate sellers all set up. Like, he knows, like, dude, a lot of these people that are inheriting this property, they might be out of state, whatever. So like, he's kind of chunked down and broken down all the different pain points to create a streamlined, systematic process that makes it easy and convenient for his clientele. Right. But then when it comes to getting relationships with those probate attorneys, he's like, it's the same thing as the asset managers. Right. He's just like, I'm showing up. I'm doing anything I can to help him. He's like, he's constantly doing, because they'll need, hey, I need you to do a CMA on this property, even though the family is choosing another real estate agent and they have a relationship with them. He's just doing free stuff to develop those relationships for the attorney with information that they need to have, so he can prove that he's a valuable asset to them. And I think so many not just real estate agents, but just people in general, go into a relationship of what can I get out of this, right? Instead of going and approaching of how can I give, man? How can I give? What can I give to prove I'm an asset, and just having faith that it's going to reciprocate. And it almost always does.
I wrote down two things that you were saying when you said it, but you came back and already said them. How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's what you said you were going to do, is that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is how you got those people. And the second thing was you identified the problem. So you knew the problem they had, and that's how you went after them. But because you've already answered it that way, I'm going to answer this question a little differently, hopefully to give value, because everybody's kind of different. And hopefully Rebecca doesn't get mad at me for this answer. But it's sometimes I say the target is wrong. So the target in this is, how do you go get probate? And I'm going, well, Josh, how do you fix the engine in your car if it breaks?
Take it to a mechanic.
So you don't go to school, go figure out how to break down an engine and go do all the things to fix an engine, right? Why? Because it's not worth your time in some category to get to the goal of being able to have a car you can drive. So my goal in that is, in a business, you want a business. And so you can go get a probate and you can do that and do that job. And that can work out well. I never personally did it either. So this is where my answer almost seems deflective to the answer that I'm going to give. But I had wrote down the same thing is, you mentioned the REO accounts. And I go, I have never in my life done a BPO. And I sold thousands of REOs, and I've never in my life done a BPO. So when I had an REO account, I went and hired people that had done BPOs. And I said, I need you guys to do this BPO so we can go do this. We sold quite a few probate properties. I've never talked to a probate attorney in my life. So I go and find the person who already knows how to do probate. But I'm going back to the whiteboard, designing a business the way I want. I happen to go get that new construction thing, but I go get a new construction builder agent and bring them in. I go and get a probate agent. I go get an REO agent. I go get a resale, an investor, a high end. And now I've designed the whole field of what I want. So you can go get it and be the probate, and you're going to be the agent somebody's going to come get. So that is a value that you'll be able to do, because I think that's a great niche. But I would go hire the expert. That's the takeaway from the question, and that is, don't be the expert in one niche. Hire the expert in every niche, and that way you can take over the whole industry. So that's probably a different answer, maybe not for Rebecca, but I think somebody else may be able to take that away and go, all right, how do I hire the expert? And that's a good one. So.
Yeah, no, powerful stuff, man. And Rebecca, like I said, if I forget, because I have a podcast right when we hang up here on this, so I've got a podcast there in about 15 minutes. But just remind me if I don't post it by the end of the day, and then Rebecca, just hit me up, tag me, remind me, but I'll make sure to post that GSD Mo podcast interview in case you do want to be the agent going after them. Because dude, Dan's the master with this, and his wife is actually a probate attorney. Now, I asked him this in the podcast, so I'm like, all right, dude, because people are going to be like, all right, Dan, man, you're married to one, bro. Like, you're just fed the business. He's like, I've got one deal ever from my wife, right? It's right? It just so happened to be that worked out that way, right? So, but he breaks it down, everything that he's done, does, how he builds his relationships, how he does the pop buys, all that stuff. So it's really powerful stuff. So, all right, so we got 2 more questions here. And if other questions come in, we'll have to wait till next session, because I know we got about 12 minutes left here. So question from Kyle: if either of you could only focus on just 2 things per day to guarantee your short and long-term success, even if the rest of the day was complete dumpster fire, what would those 2 things be? And I'll go first, I guess.
You're the host.
Based on that stare. All right. And dude, this is not it's going to be one of those answers that you may not want to hear either. Because here's the thing, when it comes to like a tactical thing that I'm doing in the day, right? So like what I do right now, there's 3 things that I do tactically in my day, right? When it comes to my business, which is content creation, strategy, and marketing. Those are the only 3 things that I'm personally involved with each and every day. And that's what my focus is when it comes to growing my business, because that's the highest and best use of my time in the seat that I'm in right now today, right? Which was vastly different when I was a full-time team leader. Right now, I have a full-time team leader that runs the team, right? So every stage, those kind of tactical things that you're doing in your business, or where your time and energy and attention is different, right? But the 2 things that I would do and that I found the biggest power in, for me to create ongoing success, regardless of what stage I'm at in my business, is number 1, my morning routine, right? And what I mean by this is you guys got to identify like the triggers and the things that allow you to operate as the best version of yourself, and what that is for you, right? So for me, it's like, dude, if I wake up at X time, which means though I got to go to bed at X time to get the amount of sleep, like I'm hardcore, right? Like I'm in bed every night at 7:30 because I'm up at 2:30 a.m. now every day, right? So But that works best for me and my schedule. Not saying other people to do it, but when people hear I get up early, they think that I don't sleep. I'm still getting 7 hours a night of sleep, right? So, and I'm trying to build that up to 8 to see how that feels for the first time. But 7 is pretty optimal for me, right? So, but anyway, if I get up at 2:30 and knock out my morning routine, like, dude, I'm guaranteed to typically have a pretty freaking epic badass day, right? Then from there, so my morning routine, and then from there is my daily planning reflection process, right? There's nothing that I've found that's really more powerful than this. If I can break it back through all the years, like the one thing, like the one daily action that I've taken that's had the biggest impact of everything else, it's been my daily planning reflection. I take 30 minutes each and every day. The first thing I do is I reflect on everything that I just did, right? Because most people are like focusing on their yearly goals or whatever it is, right? Like I just live my life in friggin' 17-hour blocks, right? It's like, dude, yeah, of course I have a target that I want to hit for the end of the year. But the only way, and I heard this from John C. Maxwell at one point, he's like, if I do my best today, tomorrow will take care of itself. Right. So I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking like, dude, I got to jump on an airplane tomorrow at 3 a.m. I got to fly to Oregon to speak to, to a 17 brokerage company, largest brokerage in the state of Oregon. Like, dude, I'm not thinking about that or what my speech is going to be like that's time blocked off at a specific time. Right now, I'm just focused on today. Right. So, but I'm going to reflect on everything that I did and throughout the day, right? And throughout I created a GSD mode performance planner I give to all my coaching clients. But I couldn't find a planner that works for me. So I created my own 6-page planner for this process, but it's my 24-hour calendar and 15-minute increments. So everything goes on there, right? So essentially I'm doing an in-depth time study each and every day, right? Where it's, I'm looking at every meeting, everything I was involved in. Was this getting me one step closer to the outcomes that I want to accomplish? And if it's a no, right, well, I'm going to learn from it, make sure it doesn't get in my calendar again. Then the next question there is all the things that did align with my goals. How can I get a little bit more efficient and a little bit more effective? And I'm thinking of in pennies and seconds, right? Because even a lot of people don't take action because like, oh, that's just a couple bucks. Oh, that just takes a minute, right? Well, those minutes add up, dude, right? So pennies and seconds. Then from there, after I do the reflection part, then I plan out my next perfect day, right? So before I go to bed at night, like I know from the second I wake up to the second I have to go to bed the next evening, what must happen for me to win that day, right? But those two things for me, if I do those, dude, I'm fucking crushing it each and every day.
So I'm going to piggyback off your answer. Waking up early is important. I am usually always up by 2:30 Australian time. So if it's 2:30 in Australia, I'm up. So it's just one of those things that I just try and get up at 2:30, maybe 2:30 Hawaiian time, but it's in that ballpark arena somewhere. So I can't explain how important that is to be up by Australian time. So, and I'm East Coast time. So my answer to it, I'm going to answer the answer for my answer to the question, and then I'm going to answer how I can hopefully make it relative. But the 3 things for me is AR. So we sell area representatives to our company. That is the highest priority of my day. I mean, it may happen once a month, once a year, who cares? But that would be the answer. The second would be selling franchises. So that's my model of what I do is selling franchises. And then the third thing is leaders. So I every day make a time to either be on the phone, meet with personally, or touch base with text, something with my leaders to kind of solve a problem or move it, because that ripple effects goes all the way down. And so I don't want to be the bottleneck to the sales, and I don't want to be a bottleneck to the organization. And so trying to make sure I answer all those and not getting in the weeds of all the other things that don't matter. So those are my 3 things. As it pertains to maybe somebody else in the group, because I don't imagine that's something that we're really going to take away and find value in, is buyers. So if I'm working with buyers, my goal is to have a ratified contract. I mean, if I'm not doing something that's moving along, having a ratified contract, one ratified a day, even at 125,000 average, a week, it gives you $500,000 a month, right? So if you're just averaging, you do one for 250 this week, great. You're still going to hit. You can work every other week, have a ratified. And so if it's not driving to that, you're wasting your time. There's no revenue coming into this industry if you don't have a sale. The next is listings. If I'm not driving to get in a listing, and it could be I sell 1 out of every 3, then I'm going to go get 3 listings. So I know if I want 1 sale a month from listings, I've got to go now list, 3 houses that month. If I want 4 houses, I got to list, or 4 homes sold, then I've got to list 3 a week. And so that breaks down the day to what it's going to be, because today it could be I've got to call them, and tomorrow it means I got to meet with them. And so that changes in that. And then if I'm a team leader, I'm trying to get out of buyers and out of lists, and I'm trying to get into hiring. And so everything I'm doing, if I'm doing a lunch and learn, if I'm doing a training or an event, I need to be bringing agents to that to give them a chance to get to know me, trust me, and open up that conversation. If I'm not doing that, then everything else is a waste, and I'm just watching the scoreboard is what I call it. You're hoping your agents are going to have more lists, more buy, more lead conversion, when really you could be driving the business by having the hires. And I hope nobody takes that to heart and really does it, because that's really our hope is we want to grow. We don't want them to keep growing. I'm just kidding. Anyway, hopefully they do it.
Love it, dude. Yeah, I mean, it's just paying attention to your most vital priorities each and every day. But you gotta know what those KPIs are. You know, the analogy I always give is like, you know, you can step on the scale every day. Like, let's say your goal is to lose 20 pounds. Well, you can step on the scale every day, but that's the only thing that you're focused on and paying attention to. You're never going to see that needle move, right? That's Instead, right. Focus on, okay, hey, what daily activity do I need to do, and what's my daily caloric intake? If I eat these meals with these daily caloric intake and do this daily activity each and every day, that scale is going to fucking show what you want it to show, right?
And evaluate the results, because, you know, my calorie intake was 5,000 a day. So, and for whatever reason, it didn't go down. I don't understand that. I was just really shocked at the results. But yeah, what you're talking about is lead and lag measures. But I know you got one more question. We got 4 minutes. So.
Yep. All right. So last question is, where do you see the future of Facebook ads versus YouTube ads for us realtors? Then the follow-up to that is, which platform will have the best long-term advantage? So, and this is really my world, if you will. Not to say that Ryan doesn't have a ton of success with these as well, but this is where YouTube and Facebook is like 90% of the business that I bring in is from YouTube and Facebook. And this is when I say that as a blanket for all my business and revenue, not just speaking of my real estate business, but my main number one focus is YouTube, right? And here's why, right? So, I mean, Facebook is dope, but Facebook is are more for immediate business. And when I mean that, right, people might take that the wrong way, especially real estate agents, because it's like, okay, the average lead that I have from Facebook is in my CRM 6.7 months before they become a client. Well, that's not immediate business like maybe you get from a sign call or an open house, right? What I mean though is that is short-term business, you know, right? And let me just, as I explain this, it'll make more sense with this, right? So if I were to like go post a Facebook post or Facebook Live or even an ad, right? Whatever that you're doing, very quickly it's buried in the news feed and people are going to see it again, you know, right? Where you just got to keep pumping more juice at it, more money at it, and so forth, right? Where YouTube is essentially your own free assistant. It is an asset that lives out there forever, right? And I'll tell you guys this right now, a statistic that came out for 2019 is 74% of people that are 54 and younger are on YouTube, right? Over 30% more than they are watching any type of TV out there, right? And as you guys, I mean, the amount of, there's like 300 million minutes of YouTube video uploaded every minute. You know, right? 1.2 billion active users. There's over a billion or a billion hours of video viewed each and every day on there. But what I love about it most, and you got to use these, is two separate tools, at least right now today. But what I look for YouTube for and how I utilize that is how people discover me, right? And with the YouTube recommends, when I say that YouTube's like your own assistant, these assets live on there forever, right? But YouTube is like, hey, if somebody's watching something that's similar to your content, YouTube's like, hey, you like this, we think that you'll like this. So my goal with YouTube each and every month is to make sure that 50% or more of all of my views and engagement that happen on my channel come from YouTube recommends and YouTube searches, right? Which means that's cold traffic. These aren't returning subscribers or people I'm emailing out a YouTube video to, right? So that's how people discover me. But you got to know how to use these tools, right? So you don't see me selling on YouTube. You don't see me, like if you guys watch my YouTube channel, you don't see me talking about, oh, how my, you know, Mastery Bootcamp coaching program is far superior than other people's coaching programs, right? That is just getting people to know me, like me, and hopefully trust me, right? But then I utilize YouTube to then drive them through the funnel, right? Like I want to get them off YouTube and get them to my website, then get them into my email list. And then that is where I'm utilizing Facebook now, is to then retarget with ads that warm traffic that came from YouTube, right? Now I'm right now I'm inviting them to an event, right? Trying to sell them, trying to close them, right? So, but YouTube, dude, just keeps gaining traction and gaining more juice. And I mean, I can't remember. I just had a list of statistics just from the other day. I just did a webinar on this. I just can't remember them, but it's something like by 2025, 80 some % of those under the age of 45 won't even have cable TV in their home, right? Because of YouTube is just where it's at. It's how people prefer to go out there and binge their content and get their content. But so if I had to pick one out of them, 100% YouTube, right? However, though, I'm not utilizing YouTube to sell. I'm utilizing it to get people to know me, like me, trust me, right? Just like I do with the podcast, whatever. And then I'm using Facebook to retarget those people, right? Because I've given them some type of a free lead magnet, right? Like maybe you're offering a free CMA, a free whatever. They're now in your email list. That is then where because now they're already warm. It's already warm traffic. I'm not using Facebook for cold traffic. I'm retargeting with that. But I don't, who knows where Facebook will be for the future when it comes to doing ads. But I know YouTube is like infancy stages, right? And it's only getting more and more powerful. Like I would bet 100% on YouTube, like Chip's Owen on YouTube, if I had to bet, like of who's going to win that game long term.
Yeah, and Facebook's kind of blocking YouTube, so you can't put the YouTubes on Facebook, so they're kind of in a beef. But and I don't have as much experience in all that stuff, like you said, as you do. I would like to throw out the idea, and I know you got to go, but is Insta. Insta's got that Insta TV. I think that is going to become a play of where it lives on, because now they can go to you and your channel and essentially see all of those live TV video type things that are on there. But the reason is because, you mentioned the age demographic, but the age demographic is moving to Insta. So the new target of who you're going to want is more on Instagram than Facebook. So Facebook starts dying out as the new generation pushes more on Instagram, but then Instagram in the combination will be the videos, meaning people aren't watching Facebook to watch videos, but they will watch Instagram and see videos. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think. I'm not doing a lot with any of it, but that's just my opinion on.
Yeah, no, it's 100% accurate, man. And here's the cool thing, you guys, is it doesn't have to be an either or world, right? Go out there, create content, put it on YouTube, right? Put it on Instagram TV. You can have up to an hour-long video now on Instagram TV. Put it on your Facebook business page, right? And there's nothing wrong if you want to boost it, or not boost, but throw some marketing dollars behind it. And of course, you run your Instagram ads out of Facebook Ads Manager. But you can throw a little bit of juice behind that if you want to, and throw that money behind it. But you definitely don't need to be throwing money behind ads to go out there and crush it with social media and YouTube, right? But just fucking be everywhere, right? That's because now today, dude, it's free and easy to be everywhere.
That's right.
All right, you guys. Well, that's all the time that we got for these questions. So again, we're going to come back every single month. So I'll be posting in here over the next couple weeks of the next date. But I'll give you a little bit more notice this next time, so you guys know to jump in here. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, or listening to this on iTunes, make sure to join us in Facebook on the GSD Mode Facebook group, where you guys can jump in and interact live and ask us any questions that you want us to answer. And Ryan, real quick, dude, just because I know this is our first one, if anybody wants to check out like what you're doing, or maybe they're interested in having a conversation with you, maybe they're a team leader or a brokerage owner that's interested in having a conversation about your franchise opportunity, like, where's the best place for people to get a hold of you, dude?
Just the easiest part of it's going to be, because I don't want to send them on a goose chase. They can just tag my name's on here. They click my name and send me a Facebook message. That's the easiest way. Because I'm too accessible, unfortunately, but I'll answer right away almost. So it's just easier to be right there, and I'll get with them. I'll get them anything that they want if they just send me a Facebook message of whatever they want. And at the same token, if they've got a question they want to ask privately or whatever, they can ask that too. So that way, if that's all right.
All right, cool. Well, appreciate you being here with us, Ryan, and thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Keep crushing it. Happy Valentine's Day. It's Valentine's Day as we're streaming this. But anyway, guys, keep kicking ass, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Later.